Good afternoon, everybody. So we are very happy to be here with you today. Thanks for the invitation, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to bring a bit of music. So Katia won't play today, but we'll talk about music. And I guess you had a lot about visual arts, art in general, but this conversation will be mostly about music and about being a musician at that age, 21, which means that you are a pure digital native. You almost never experience physical good, a CD or a vinyl or LP. You had some, you told me, but you're clearly from the generation of the digital age. And that's why we thought that it was interesting to listen to you, to have your perspective about that, because you are the future. And of course, it's always more interesting to listen to the new generation versus listening to the old generation like mine. So briefly, a few words about myself. I am Hervé Boissière, the co-CEO of the Verbier Festival since a year. I just started a year ago, last April, so last summer was my first festival. And before I worked for quite many years in the record industry, major labels and independent label, Warner, Nave. And the last big experience was Medici TV. I founded in 2007 in Verbier, because the Verbier Festival was the very first organization to believe in that streaming venture, because in 2007 that was just the beginning. YouTube was started in 2005, so it was quite adventurous at that time. But Martin Engström, the founder of the Verbier Festival, was quite, as always, in advance, and he understood the potential of that new channel, new media, which was live streaming the concerts of the festival. And based on that experience, it became a big success story, etc. And for about 20 years, Medici TV was filming and broadcasting the concerts from Switzerland to all over the world. I'm very pleased to introduce you, Ekaterina Bonyushkina. You are a wonderful artist, a wonderful talent, pianist. So you know that now. You are 21 years old and born in Moscow. And you started the piano very early, like it's often the case. You were 6 years old, I guess, or 5. Yeah. So very, very young, very early dedication to the instrument, of course. And you already won many prestigious awards in Moscow, in Geneva, in Lausanne, in many very important competitions. And last year you were part of the Academy of the festival, because you know education is a very key part of the Verbier Festival. And we have a very special category, if I may say that, for emerging artists, which means that we are not welcoming the artist in the Academy like it happens every year. We really select one, max 2, very young artists, emerging artists, and who are usually special. And you were the emerging artist of last year, and it was really a great pleasure to have you on board, to see you, to listen to you. And based on this extraordinary experience, we were all amazed by your art. We decided to invite you this summer for a real official recital in the main stage series. So you will have a recital the 19th of July with a very ambitious program. And I'm very happy because you put Kapustin in the program. Kapustin is an amazing Russian composer mixing jazz and classical, and you have to come to a recital. And there is other Beethoven and Brahms, and very good program. So it's a great honor to have you, to have this conversation about the theme of the day, which is a bit, I have to say, stressful. You know, when I see the title of this summit, it's Quarter Life Crisis, Art in a World on the Brink. Oh my God, I said, I know the environment is quite tricky these days, but are we in such bad situation when we have the pleasure and the honor to have a young, shining artist like you, very positive, full of hopes, and that's what we are going to discuss together, because of course we are all very worried about the situation, but on the other hand, we have also to keep some positive views, whatever the situation is. And I thought that quarter life, to have somebody again from that age, was a perfect way to get your perspective, and I hope we won't be will be less depressed after that chat than before the chat. I don't know. We'll see. We'll do our best to make sure that it's a positive and meaningful conversation. Before I give you the mic, just I wanted to challenge and question a bit the title of our lovely meeting today, because it was printed in the program, Music in the Digital World. The rules are broken. But I think we shall challenge, and we should consider that title more as a question than as a statement. And we should add a question mark, actually, because first of all, we don't know the answer. I mean, the rules are broken, maybe or maybe not. The rules are changing, for sure. The rules are different, no doubt, but are broken, it depends, you know. So I think it's more work in progress. It's more an open question. We should consider than a statement. And it's of course a very interesting starting point to ask you, Katja, if you think that the rules are broken or not.
Well, already thanks a lot, Hervé, for this wonderful presentation, and thanks a lot for inviting me here. I feel very honored and very happy to first be part of this summit, and then be joining the main stage of the festival. Really a great pleasure and a great honor. Yeah, I find it's a funny way to start by picking this question, the sort of the main question of this discussion, by trying to answer it right away in the very beginning of the discussion. But yes, let's try to think about it. And maybe the first thing I would like to bring up would be what defines the 21st century born young people, and that's probably due to the consuming of the resources that we have, the media, the social media, the streaming platforms, and everything that we have. It allows us the access, almost infinite access to any kinds of content that we wish to see or to hear or to watch. And there is a certain challenge coming with that. And maybe I think it's the attention span. That's probably the point, the main point of all this, because the attention span, it's not me who invents this. It's really a fact. It's become much shorter. And so if we start to talk about music, for instance, you mentioned in the very beginning that back in the 90s, 80s, and before, even in 30s and 20s, we had the LPs, and everyone was listening to vinyl players. Well, of course, now it doesn't exist anymore, or most people don't have that anymore. But What we have, on the contrary, is the streaming platforms like Apple Music or Spotify or YouTube. And so that's what most people do today. If they want to listen to something, they don't plan it in advance. They don't plan a session, an act of music listening as it was back in the day, where you would come home after work, you had your vinyl player, you would go for your collection, you would pick, today I want to listen to Mahler Third Symphony, and then you would sit and actually listen to the whole piece. With maybe some family members. This is almost never the case now. What you would do now, most of the time, we would listen to the music on the go, in the train, in the car, in the bike, anywhere. And it would most of the time not be a complete piece. I must admit, I have never listened to a complete Mahler or Bruckner symphony on the go on a train from Geneva to Zurich. Because yes, you get distracted. You get distracted. There are the paysages passing, beautiful views, beautiful scenery, some calls maybe. So maximum you would listen to maybe 1 or 2 movements, and then you will pick something else based on your mood at this moment. So this is also maybe one of the clear moments that if before in the previous century we had kind of a idea what piece we would like to listen to this night, what composer, what feeling this composer, this piece of this composer evokes. Today it's more like, I know in this piece there is this movement that brings me so much relaxation or, I don't know, or joy or dramatic experience. And then you listen to that movement because you know that you need this emotion at this moment of time. So this is already a very significant change, and I would like to make that a point.
So excuse me to interrupt you. So you're saying that the format, because you're talking about the playlist, actually, versus the album where the editorial, the content was the king, because it was really a program conceived, either it was a single piece or a combination of pieces chosen by the artist, by the record label, and that was proposed as a full experience, when now people are listening music through playlist, mostly done or conceived, I don't know if it's the right word, by algorithm. That's a big shift. Yes. That's a big shift. And for you, you think it's an opportunity or a risk of losing the character of the music, or losing the the relevancy of the editorial concept you as an interpreter can have?
I don't think we can really lose the quality of listening to the music, but it's definitely a challenge if we can consume as much music as we wish. If we may change from one movement of Bach Sonata to a movement of Schoenberg string quartet or whatever in 2 seconds, just by clicking, just by creating a playlist, it means that maybe while coming to the concerts, we're less and less capable of actually listening to the whole concert of 1.5 hours. So this is really a risk. But in the same time, I think it's a great opportunity, because before it was not as easy to find the music so fast. You find the recording you want, any interpret, 2 seconds, and you have Simon Rattle, you have Prévent, you have Toscanini, you have from the 20th century, from the 21st century, with every possible orchestra. So you really choose what you want to listen to, and you may change. And it's brilliant, because for your development, for your education, it can help you. But you really need to build a structure, otherwise you will get lost in this enormous amount of information coming to you from all the directions, and it really can lead to losing the attention, to less going to the longer concerts, and to needing more help maybe from the interpret by telling you something before the concert, or even offering some presentations, some video presentations during the concert with some images of, I don't know, flowers, of some fields, of waterfalls in motion, and everything. This may help. This may help the artists. Sorry, the artist may help the audience to understand his interpretation of the piece, if he's not sure the audience is going to follow on their own, by creating this maybe presentation, by letting the audience dive into their interpret's world of emotions and imagination.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But let's stay a bit about what you said about the media and the recordings, actually, because the fact that most of the music, because just to make clear that the statistics, 75% of the music on the digital platforms is listened through playlist. And with the public, we passive. It's not an active research. You don't decide. So 70% or 75% is really playlist just delivered by the platform. So that means that people are happy to get it. It's, as you know, a lot of editorial curation because it's piano or music for pets or music for gardening or music whatever. It's a lot of proposals, some of them being very, very core classical music in turns, others being more inexperienced, etc. But that just shows that it's really the big majority listening to music through those playlists. And for you, of course, as an interpreter, it means that you are mixed with other musicians. Because if you listen to a romantic piano playlist, you will get a track played by you, Chopin, whatever, Brahms, Schumann, etc. And the next one or the one before will be played by another musician. How do you feel with that? I mean, do you think it's something which is a challenge because you lose a kind of integrity, a kind of consistency, or do you just say, okay, it works like that, and it's my world now, and let's play with that? Or how do you? And does it have an influence on your program's conception? I mean, do you integrate that, or you just do what you want on your own, and you don't really take care of that new configuration?
Well, no, I think it's really important to take into consideration the fact that people are used to maybe pieces more close in the sense to certain emotions, to certain types of activities, daily activities that they do, and music accompanies them in those actions. And we cannot just remain passive about that. Of course, we have to adapt. And so that's why we have the playlist. That's why algorithms create these playlists with your favorite artists playing your favorite pieces. I don't think in the program you could really, in a concert program of 1 hour, you could really create a program where you would play 10 2-minute pieces or even more very short pieces, because finally there must be a genuine idea for the concert and not just the only goal of the interpret to make the listeners, quite happy and not distracted between these 2 minutes of one piece. So one thing is to create a program that would not be too hard for a listener to conceive. So it shouldn't be 2 hours, it shouldn't be even 1.5 hours. It could be shorter. But you cannot only put very expressive, very short pieces with a simple, basic idea, like, many people would add 2-3 preludes of Chopin just to, as a little impromptu, right? This is the tempest, this is the raindrop, this is the sunshine. So this we also need, but what's a great challenge is to create such a program that would have a general idea, what made me choose these composers. Why did I choose Schumann and Brahms? Why didn't I choose someone else? Why did I choose these pieces? One of them is 25 minutes long, the other one is maybe 15 minutes. So you really, as an artist, you should be extremely clear with the program that you're suggesting, what your idea is. And if it's clear enough, if you're expressive enough with this idea, with giving life to it, I don't think the public will finally have a problem with following this program. And then in the end, or in between the big pieces, you may use as the, little apéro. You may use some shorter pieces to drawing even more attention, to making it even more attractive, I think.
Yeah, sure. And it's funny because we just said that in terms of the format of recording music, everything changed. But on the concert format, nothing changed because we are still presenting the concert, at least for classical music, exactly the same way than 2 centuries ago. I mean, if you take a program in 1852 and in 2025, it's almost the same. You have the overture, the concerto, then the intermission, and then at the end, a big symphony. So it's a bit weird, no, to have on one side a complete revolution and the other side something which is so static, so the same. It's okay for you to continue to appear on stage like it was before?
Well, I think there are several points to that. First, it's not the only possible variant of program, because now you were talking about symphonic program, right?
True.
But there are much more...
For recitals, it's almost the same, no?
For recitals, I think even in the 19th century with these crazy programs of Rubinstein, you can see it can be like a 2 hours or even more recital where he would play a few Beethoven sonatas, a few Liszt pieces in a row, and there would hardly even be an intermission. So it's really crazy how people were able to listen to all that in one evening. I think it really requires enormous knowledge of the pieces played and the composers played in the concert, and a great interest to be able to follow such an intense experience. But yes, today it can seem weird that it did not change that much if we speak about symphonic program. And on the other hand, though, we have so much experimentation with concert formats. Like we have people speaking to the audiences, making it much more interactive, maybe even posing some questions and playing some games with the audience.
Are you open to that? Are you ready to propose that during your concerts?
Generally, I'm absolutely open to that. I'm open to any alternatives, any inspiring new ideas that help the audience to engage with the interpret, with the performer, and with the music you're playing. Because, the goal of giving the concert is not just us, the interprets, feeling satisfied with the beautiful program we played on this beautiful piano. It's much more the engagement with the public, the dialogue with the audience. And if the audience is somehow blocked, does not understand you fully, it's a pity. So we really should look for all the possible ways to make it more and more accessible to them. And yes, as I said before, one way of doing that is maybe adding some visual components. The other way is maybe not doing that. I would say, honestly, myself, I tend to believe that originally, in the ideal world, music really has everything to be the only thing presented in the stage. We really don't need originally any kind of visual accompaniment to what we're playing. Because when it was composed, nothing as that existed. It was just a composer who read, for instance, a German composer who read a lot of German literature in his epoch, who interacted with many other composers, his colleagues from all over Europe, for instance. And then he would compose one of his greatest masterpieces. And I think he would probably be even afraid to know that for some people it's so unclear, this piece, that they would need a visualization of mountains or, yes, anything like that. So rather, I would say that I would try to work with presenting a program in a very clear way, already with the pieces we choose, but also maybe with speaking to the audience either before each piece or maybe more randomly in the very beginning, then sometime shortly after the intermission, just to keep them engaged if necessary, give them some background about not even necessarily the piece that was written, not any details that we care about, the analysis of the structure. The audience never cares about that. It's really, you really should find something touching the audience maybe some facts about, this letter this composer wrote to his friend when he was writing this piece, which reflects how deep deep sadness he felt at the moment, for instance. Or, for instance, if we speak about Schumann, there was a period in his life where he was finally allowed by the father of Clara Schumann, his future wife, to get married, and it was literally a period, but where this composer would write pieces in 3 days, 5 days, weeks, and it was so productive. It's so amazing, and it's so fresh. You feel that something really great happened to this man, and you feel it immediately in the music, and you understand how it's possible that he wrote it in such short period of time. It's not possible in another condition where you're maybe depressed as a composer. It's not going to happen that you'll produce a piece in a very short period of time, and then another piece, and then another piece. It's really like a flow, an inspirational flow that can't stop. It's something really natural. It's your connection with the human resources, with the feelings. And this is probably something interesting for the audiences to know, because what if not that helps to connect with the piece you're about to perform and why you chose this piece.
Yeah,
So,
you're a super good Schumann promoter. We want to listen more Schumann now, for sure.
But we can do that about any other composer.
Absolutely,
Yes.
yeah, you're so right. You're so right. No, absolutely. I think it's super important. I think what is interesting these days that for the first time ever for classical music, we are in front of a new generation without any references, which is completely new, because before, all the previous generation had, for many reasons, family reasons, social reasons, whatever, or they were practicing an instrument, classical music was part of the it was a kind of a mark of something, But today, we are with a generation without any references, without any classical education. So it's a risk or it's an opportunity, because, as you said before, there is so much to take from that new situation, because people are maybe more open-minded, maybe they are more curious to their own, because it's more free, So it's a very fascinating time, where people, they, as you said, they don't even know Toscanini, Karajan, or Horowitz. Those names are abstract, When before people were extremely, serious about that, saying, okay, that's good, that's bad, this one is better, blah, blah, blah. And they were a bit between them and a bit closing the game. When we'll see if the new game, the new rules, again, are not broken, but are changing a lot and maybe opening the game. We'll see. It's too early to say, but...
Yeah, indeed, I would also like to add that, for instance, contemporary music, which is an enormous field today. There are hundreds of thousands of modern composers who offer an incredibly, and each one in a different way, the integration, the synthesis of visual, auditorial, and psychological. It's the synthesis of these three aspects together. And I think this lack of basic professional classical education and knowledge also lets the younger generation to listen to this music. Well, if you make a kid listen to a super contemporary piece, the kid who doesn't know who Mozart or Beethoven is, this kid would be absolutely open, because it doesn't sound dissonant for him. And for us, who grew up listening to Bach, Mozart, and Beethoven, if we listen to some piece created in 2023, we kind of tend to close our ears because it sounds so dissonant, so shocking, so not close to us. So yeah, this is definitely an opportunity, because this contemporary music, it's actually made to be consumed by the 21st century people born in this age, with all these psychological difficulties as the attention, the amount of special effects we have in the movies. We also need these special effects in the music, so that's why we have all these incredible light shows or sound effects, or many of these experimentations find place in the contemporary pieces by composers in all over the world. Yeah.
But you're so right about contemporary music, because it's true that today we'll have people having no understanding or no knowledge of Bach and Boulez. So there is no préjugé, there is no cliché saying, oh, Bach, I love it because it's easy listening, and Boulez, it's scaring and completely dissonant music, and it's not for me. Because it's still fascinating to see for the presenters, the performing arts organization we are, like the Verbier Festival. Each time you put on a billboard, you know, Bach, Beethoven, Brahms, you sell. You put Bach, Stravinsky, Boulez, suddenly you lose 50% of your concert goers. For wrong reasons, because it's a préjugé, it's a cliché, it's something that, because especially now people have much bigger, I mean, they are open to new experiences. So, but the fact that there is no automatic reaction saying, okay, that is for me, that is not for me, because it's 21st century or 20th century music, I think is really a chance for all of us to open the mind and to give more music, diverse music to the people. So it's quite funny, because on the one hand, the digital platforms are the enemy of diversity, for sure, concentration, you know, globalization, more and more every day, and at the same time, especially through the performing arts, we can also open the game and hopefully have nice encounters with the people. Of course, talking about digital future, music, new generation, we can't ignore AI, artificial intelligence. We see that in the pop world, in the pop music, people are super stressed about that, for sure, because you've seen probably that there is first big stories about labels, artists, being in a very crazy situation because it was fake songs, fully created. Is it the right word? Is it fake or not fake? It's a song, but fully produced by AI. Is it something you are considering? Is it something, do you use AI first of all? I mean, not when you play piano, but in your day-to-day life. I mean, how do you see, is it something which is, you're concerned about that for your life or a performer, or you say, that's where we are, and let's be relaxed with that?
Well, I don't think we can be relaxed with someone who is becoming so fast such an irreplaceable part of our lives that probably in the very near future will have many people's jobs more irrelevant. So there are many things that AI is much more precise about than people, and this is definitely a concern. But if we're talking about daily life basis, I think it's incredibly useful. I use it almost on literally every day to ask some questions to help me structurize maybe the questions I would like to raise in some work I'm supposed to prepare in the Haute École de Musique de Genève. Mm-hmm. If you're writing your thesis, you may have many ideas, and what you should really distinct with AI is making him invent something for you and say, you know, I have a project assignment, I need to write about this, 2,000 words, can you help me with that? This is one thing. You're not going to be happy with that because it's his own work. But how you should really use the AI, in my view at least, and I've been quite happy with this experience, is that you give him all your ideas that you have about this project you have of 2,000 words. So you say, this seems to me a very important topic, then maybe we should switch to that and show the diversity of these 2 points. And then you would have the AI working with your ideas and creating probably something that's more coherent and more accessible for the listeners or for those who read your thesis. So this is great, and I think we should not underestimate the importance of AI. However, the danger is again to being less and less able thinking with your own brain. So this is, and this is very, very, very dangerous, and it's really your responsibility to keep this process under control. So not delivering any thought process to him and refusing to think on your own, but rather have your own thoughts, very precise, and then transferring them to ChatGPT or DeepSeek or I forget even what we have of the concurrence of those two, to have maybe a side view of someone that doesn't have any emotions, but who is very rational and who has an enormous data bank, who has seen millions and millions of situations like the one you're describing to him, and maybe giving you a different view on the topic you just brought up. But do you also want to talk about the creating music, like classical music with the AI, or is it just the modern life, day-to-day basis topics that interest you? Because
But for instance, before answering your question, I mean, did you ask AI to help you about the interpretation itself, about the touché, about the tempo, etc., to get some content?
I think this is really not a way to go, because this is so human, so individual. This is something you have. If you don't have your own ideas, if you don't have your own feelings, how do you expect a creation of technology to learn to teach you these feelings? It's something so human to have these feelings and ideas and to learn them from your culture, where you come from, that it's really the other way around. Maybe we teach them to AI to help him create something more human and more intuitive, rather than only rational and digital. Yes.
Sensitive.
Yes.
Sensitivity of the machine. Oh my God, that's a topic. Great. And you said you told me last time that you heard a fully AI production. It was Beethoven.
Yeah, it was Beethoven X, like 10.
Yeah,
Beethoven
like 10. And I think it's funny to share the story, because you told me that it was so special.
Yes, it was indeed very special. Already I have to say I don't know very much about the creation of this piece, but I think that it was a mixed work by 2 British or 3 British like musicologists, scientists, and the AI. And I think it was not the last 2-3 years, but rather 2019-20, so before the ChatGPT actually started to bloom and produce what he produces now with visionary arts and visual arts and pop music. But it was very interesting for me to listen to, because if you analyze it from a musicological point of view, you see that so many important Beethoven's elements are integrated. You would really say that I can recognize that this is by Beethoven, because this pattern, he uses it very often. This orchestration also pattern, he uses it. I can recognize it. I've seen it in his 5th symphony. So yes, I can really see why this comes again in his later work. But then there is immediately one thing that strikes me and that tells me that this is not the real Beethoven who wrote it, is that even though everything is so correct, so precise on the musical language level, somehow it lacks we can call it the human point, but in Beethoven's particular case, I would say it's this incredible dramaturgy, this humor, this fire that Beethoven has. It doesn't have it. I mean, everything is really correct, really perfect. You can really say that maybe this doesn't work for Beethoven. He would come up with something better or more beautiful. But there is not this catchy, this amazing live element that any piece of Beethoven I heard, the actual piece of Beethoven had.
Yeah, but you are one of the few knowing the real Beethoven. I mean, having you had the opportunity to go to concerts, to listen great interpreters, conductors, orchestras, or great recordings, so you can compare, and you immediately feel the difference, as you said. But what's about people having never heard a Beethoven symphony before with real people?
I think it's really our responsibility as professionals to let these people feel the difference, because it's so clear if you compare the two without having any basis, any professional education in music. It's really so immediately clear what's the fraud and what's the actual, creation. So I think if we work on presenting the actual human composers' arts very close to what AI created. I don't want to say that it's the same now, because I really don't follow it that closely. Maybe now it's really the question of time. Maybe now ChatGPT could create something that would be really impossible to tell the difference with the classical composers. But based on this experience with Beethoven X, Beethoven 10th, I can say that definitely if you make people hear a 30-second excerpt of an actual symphony of Beethoven, and this without any knowledge, they will be able to tell you what they like more, because in one of them there is really some fresh life, some energy, and the other case there isn't.
I feel better now. So I told you this meeting is really creating positive feeling. So now we have the proof of it. One last question, maybe, because I see that, of course, we need time for you guys to ask questions and talk to Katja. We are talking about digital music. Digital is for sure globalization, standardization. How do you consider that in your life today? Because I mean, first of all, you're born in Russia, born in Moscow, living in Switzerland, studying in Switzerland now, but you are really in front of a big career everywhere. Do you think that's the globalization or the standardization, let's say, has an impact on the future of your music life in terms of programs? Do you intend to consider the specificity of the continents of the countries you are going to play? Do you think, okay, I should have a program for Asia and a different one for America, etc.? Or you say, okay, at least it's a good news for me to have something I can really share the same or everywhere for everybody, and I know this program can touch the people wherever they are from. How do you see the situation about traveling all around the world, and do you think you need to fine-tune and tailor, adapt, or you say, okay, let's be global, like the world is moving on like that?
Well, I think you can play with this in all the possible directions. So you can say, going to Asia, I may create a very special program for Asian people, and going to USA, something totally different. But on the other hand, this is an absolutely working option. You can work on the specifics of the culture you're dedicating your concert to. But the absolutely contradictional to that approach would be to try to find a sort of a unified language that anyone would be able to understand. And so you'd try to play the same program in 10 different countries, and you would see how different the reactions would be. That is also part of the game, and I think it's really very interesting to see how the same piece by the people of different cultures can be perceived differently. And I would love to explore both these possibilities, if possible.
And being because you are the perfect example for me and for many of us of the best of the Russian classical piano school. I mean, you are really in that huge tradition, being you work at the Gnessin School, one of the best school in the world, a school where Trifonov, Kissin, Svetlanov were before. Now you work with Nelson Gerner, I guess. But you are typically, the best of this Russian piano school. Is that something you want to, you hope will be understood by the people, will be perceived by the people, or you just consider yourself as a global citizen and you don't really care, and you don't try to keep that tradition? Because before it was clear you were listening to Gilels, you knew it was the Russian school immediately. You know, the style, the technique, everything was really, it was a kind of format in a way. I say it with a lot of respect, but you were recognizing quite immediately. Is that something you are proud of it and you want to keep alive, or you just say, you know, that's old world, all times, and I just do my best and try to give the best of every concert, and whatever people consider that or not understand that?
I think it's very personal somehow. For every person, it's a different decision. But for me, it's a matter of principle, really. And I would say that it's great to be part of Russian school, because, you know, if you start to listening to some recordings of Rachmaninoff, who is, of course, best known as a composer, but if you find his piano recordings, and if there are even some very rare footages of him playing the piano without sound, I think, but still you can really recognize it, as you just said. And even today, if a person is representing Russian piano school, you can tell almost right away by looking at the way he produces the sound, and the way, not only looking but also listening to the way he produces the sound, you can tell it's Russian school. And I think for me, it's incredibly important to be already integrated into this. But the opportunity that we have today with the globalization that we didn't have in the 20th century is being able to take many moments, many specific subjects and details from any other school. For German school, French school, Hungarians, we can take master classes, we can visit the concerts, and by listening to that, we can incorporate all the possible ideas of the other schools and enriching in this way our own school, but without actually losing the core, the cultural core that was brought to us in the very beginning of our lives with our culture that formed us. So the literature, the movies, the historical and political context and everything, that you cannot just get rid of that and say, now I'm not anymore part of this, now let me be a global citizen and I will try to speak with my music just in a very universal way that will be accessible to everyone. It's not the goal.
Katja, we'd love to continue for hours, but I'm afraid we have to have a break now. Maybe questions, of course, from the public.
I have a question I can do without a microphone, I think. Thank you so much for your question to talk about this. The Verbier Art Summit is very much about talking about art and not watching the art and looking at everything to actually go into the in-depth feelings about it. You've done that, but for the first time I kind of regret it here because it would be really nice to be playing. Are we going to be able to see you play in the summer here? Are you going to be?
Yes, that's exactly the thing. I will be playing my recital on the 19th of July. Yeah, so it would be a pleasure to see you all there.
You are very welcome.
much more repetitive than the classical authors we know. And I'm just thinking, I'm just thinking, how do you explain that? You being young and talking about attention span and the fact that you like changing completely your music from one moment to another on Spotify. How do you explain this thing?
You mean the difference
the
of...
fact that they're
the
attracted to...
You're talking about the neoclassic wave we see
much
with...
simple, much more repetitive.
Yeah, easy listening, actually.
So that looks paradoxally for me.
Well, it's inevitable if we don't have the education from the early age, because in Moscow, actually, most children from the very young age, they go to music school, even if they're not supposing to make a career out of that. And so we have some really basic knowledges about composers. We're listening to the music with the teachers, with the scores, and we analyze it a little bit. And so we really get used to some intellectual tension that classical music has in itself. And it's not the case for other children that are not brought up in this way, that they were made by their parents or by their teachers to listen to the harder pieces, to really force your brain to turn on at a given moment. And so if at some point a child or a young person really finds it important to make his brain function, if it gives you a pleasure to go into sophisticated details that don't exist in the more modern music today, probably, that's a great thing. And I hope more and more people will realize that it's somehow very important, and we cannot just let our brains do what they want because we're tired and we're so. The life is so intense, so full of dramatic events that we really need to calm down. We need to relax, but it doesn't mean that we have to turn off the thinking function of the brain and just let ourselves enjoy, something extremely simple. So that's my approach. But
okay, I will send them to you then.